Hey everybody, today we're going to talk about fit. I'm just going to show you what I do when I have to make pattern of piece adjustments. So I'm sewing 1283 by Simplicity and they are pants. I bought the pattern size 8 to 14 because the tops I am in the 8 to 14 range, but for the pants I'm not. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to grab the 8 to 14 and then I'll make the changes as necessary. So this is the size 14 pattern piece of the pants, and it's just the ends hanging off right here. So I'm going to start at the top, and I'm using the technique of measure myself, measure the pattern. So we're going to think of the body in 4 pieces. You've got 2 at the front and 2 at the back. So that's 4. What we're going to do, and in your pattern piece, this is piece number 10. It's the front pants piece. Your pattern also thinks of you as a 4th. So you've got 1, 2, and then the back pattern piece is 3 and 4. So I'm going to start at the top of my pattern piece, and I'm going to adjust, or I'm going to measure my waist, and then I'm going to measure the pattern piece waist. Some pattern pieces will have your finished measurements. If they don't, this is a good technique to learn. And if they don't, even if they do, I measure them anyway. So I'm going to start around where the pants are going to hit. These are high waist pants. So I'm going to measure about my belly button, and I'm going to measure to my side seam. Now don't look at my shirt. This is my side seam is right here, and that is 9 inches for me. So let's move to the pattern piece. So the first thing I noticed here in my waistline is that I've got a dart. So before I measure my pattern piece, I am going to form that dart. So I'm just going to do a little quick fold here for the largest size, and I'm just going to quickly pin it in place like that. Now I'm going to take my tape measure and I'm going to measure across the waistline. There's my waistline marking. And this pattern piece is showing me to be about 8 1/4 at the waistline. So as I measure across, this pattern piece is showing me to be 8 1/4 across with my dart formed. Remember, always tape or pin your darts in your pattern piece before you do any measurements. So my waist measurement is a 9. So I need to add 3/4 of an inch to this pattern piece. So let's do that. So from at the waistline point, I'm going to measure in about 1.5 inches, roughly. So about right here. And I'm going to make a slash all the way down the length of the pants. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Now we're ready to slash and spread on our pattern piece. So go ahead and unpin any darts that you have pinned or gathering or pleats or whatever is going on with the pattern piece that you're doing. Go ahead and unpin it and lay your pattern piece flat. Now this is my center front, this is my side seam. I want to make sure that my pattern piece is wide enough at the waist to reach around to my side seam. So right now my pattern piece, the stitching line, not the seam allowance, because this includes your seam allowance. So my stitching line, which is about right here, and my stitching line, which is about right here, does not reach to my side seam back here. Like my stitching line needs to be back here. So I'm going to add, and my dart is right about here. So I'm going to add, on this pattern piece, I'm going to add width in this pattern between the dart and the side seam. So I'm going to make a slash all the way down vertically through this pattern piece, and we're going to open it up. So based on my measurement, which is a 9, and the pattern, which is an 8¼ I need to add 3/4 of an inch to the width of this pattern piece. And remember, I am doing, this is with a knit that has a little bit of stretch. So again, I intend to work with negative ease, so I am making my pattern piece, including seam allowance, the same as my body measurements. So when I sew the garment on with the seam allowances, I'm going to have a little bit of stretch, giving me a firm fitted look. I'm going to cut about 2 inches in from the most curved in point of the pattern piece, and I'm simply going to cut all the way down this pattern piece. Alrighty, we've got our tissue paper and we've got our pattern piece slashed and laid out on our tissue paper. Let's go ahead and tape it down. Before I tape it down, I'm just going to make a quick note here. If you are increasing, then you're going to follow the theories that I'm showing you. If you are decreasing, making this smaller, you're going to take, let's say you're decreasing 3/4 of an inch. You're just going to overlay your pattern piece by 3/4 of an inch. So you would measure 3/4 of an inch, lay it down 3/4 of an inch, and tape it down. And then you would true up your lines. Okay, got one side taped down here. And using your horizontal lines, your lengthen and shorten lines, don't use your hem or your waistline. You want to use these because they're stationary, they're fixed, they're not going anywhere. Your waist line and your hem line will change when you are increasing or decreasing pattern width. It's slightly, but it will change. So I'm lining up with this lengthen and shorten line around the knee area. Grabbing a tape measure. And I'm marking 3/4 of an inch, which is my magic number. And I'm just going to go down every few inches, mark that line. So I've got my 3/4 of an inch marked all the way down my pattern piece, and using my horizontal lengthen and shorten lines as guides, I'm going to, here's my mark right here, I'm going to just line up the edge of my pattern here, and I'm going to tape it down. And then I'm going to do that all the way down this pattern piece. You can see here, we've got a little bit of extra length on this side than we do here. So we're going to do what's called truing up the line. I have a hip curve ruler, which would probably be my best shot here. It really mimics the line across the bottom of these pants. So I'm going to line up my ruler with the longer edge of my pants, and I'm going to draw a new hemline all the way across. If you don't have a hip curve ruler, then you would just eyeball it. And again, this is called truing up your lines. It's making your new lines match and be consistent and be straight and do what they're supposed to do. And on the side here, I'm just going to use the straight part of my ruler and just join that line to my new one. It's just like 1/4 of an inch. Hope you can see it's very, very minimal. It's probably 1/8 of an inch difference, but it is there. I'm going to go ahead and secure this to the bottom of this tissue paper before I cut it out, so I'll know what to cut around. Okay, we're at the top at the waistline, and it's just a little bit of a difference, very, very tiny difference that we're going to have to make an adjustment to. There's a smidge that I need to add. So I'm just gonna add it here at the top, true it up. It's like a 1/16 of an inch. If you're really that particular about it, then go ahead and do it. If not, then you're not gonna hurt anything. Go ahead and cut off the excess tissue paper. You're gonna do the exact same principle on your back pattern piece. Ladies and gentlemen, you are done. This is my front pattern piece that I just did with you. And I went ahead and completed my back pattern piece, which I only needed to add a 1/2 inch to my back pattern piece. So now I have more to do with my patterns because I need to add length to accommodate my long legs. So I'm gonna do that in part 2, so I'll see you there.